Hello again. I'm glad you joined us. Today we're going to look at our third lesson on fuel. We looked at forgiveness and we learned that forgiveness is how we find peace in our families and we create peace in our homes and with each other. We also looked at understanding and how that creates unity in our home. And we also found out that God is really the only one who truly understands us, and it's a wonderful thing to know that He does. Today we're going to look at some E words for the word fuel. E words like empowering and encouragement. You know, encouragement is a good word. We all like to hear encouraging things, don't we? We like people to say things where we know they believe in us, where they are encouraging us to keep going or to try harder or even to try something new. The Bible uses the word edify. It's another E word. It's very akin to encouragement. It means to build up or to strengthen or to point in a direction. You know, the words that we use with our family are like arrows. They pierce the heart and then they lodge there. And then we hear those words over and over in our heads, don't we, in our minds. And I know that's been true for me. The words that my parents and my grandparents have said to me in the past, they're still with me. And I rely on them sometimes and I remember them. I know one grandmother had a couple of sayings that she always liked to tell me. The first one was, get your education. That's something they can never take away from you. And I wondered back then, why was she so worried about that? But now I look back and I see that she had experienced the Great Depression and both world wars, and she was trying to impress upon me the value of the intangible, because she knew that life was temporary and that things you hold in your hand can be taken away from you. Another thing she would say is, it's not how much money you make, but it's how you manage your money. And again, that probably came from the experiences they had in the Depression, where they told me about having to sell off livestock and things at great losses. And they were very astute financial people. They kept a record of everything they bought and sold, every car, every animal, every piece of farm equipment. They knew where all their money had gone, and they planned very, very well. They would make things stretch. They never used a credit card, or they didn't take out a loan for anything but property, and when they did, they paid it off as fast as they could. I never really saw them go without. They would save up for everything that they needed. My grandmother used to love to change her carpet, and I remember Grandpa saying, you can have a carpet as soon as you save up the money for it. And I mean, that lady would have her grocery budget and she would save her money until she could get her a brand new carpet. It seemed to me like about every 2 or 3 years, but that was the way they worked, and they had learned how to do those kind of things. So that kind of things have stuck with me, and I find them encouraging, and they edify me, and they empower me. So let's look at this E word, empowering. Empowering is more than just saying words. Empowering is enabling. And there's another E word, enabling. Empower is enabling someone to reach their goals. You know, when I got married, I had the idea that I was supposed to help my husband succeed. That's what I saw that a wife should do, empower him. Empower him to succeed, because as he succeeded, I would succeed. Well, we started in our path of Christian service about the end of our second year of marriage, when Tom was called to preach, and he started working at the church and went to Bible college, and from there we went on to deputation and then on to the mission field, and he celebrated his 30th birthday in England. So we had succeeded. We'd managed to empower each other and get to that point. And then after several years on the field, I felt a desire to continue my education, probably with my grandmother's words ringing in my ears. And you know what? My husband empowered me to do just that. He gave me space to study, he bought me a computer, and he paid for my education. And he did that so he could equip me. And there's another E, equipping. He equipped me for success. So as we encourage and edify and equip and empower those around us, we build hope in them, and we strengthen our families, and we strengthen our home. Because where one succeeds, everyone succeeds, and the family becomes a stronger unit when they're working for each other and for the success and good of each other. The Bible uses some little phrases that we might recall, where it says, in honor, preferring one another, putting someone else's needs first, not looking every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. You know, a strong family works together for the benefit of the whole. They see themselves as a unit, and where one succeeds, they all succeed. It isn't too hard to imagine the opposite, is it though? It's a family where everyone's out for themselves, where there's such competition inside between the members that it creates ill will. And this is not an empowering family. It's not an encouraging atmosphere. It does not build up or edify or equip. It actually tears the family apart. This type of family is characterized by a want or a desire to control each other. They want to keep things as they are, and they're afraid of exposing their inadequacies, so they use coercion and threats and fear to control the family and try to keep things the way they want them to be. And so fear permeates the whole family. They fear really the fact that if one person was to succeed above them, then they would see themselves as a failure. And they don't want anybody to break loose. They're very unreliable if you live in a family like this, because if you are a member that's trying to get ahead in life, then the other family members will not want that. It's kind of like the story of the can of worms. Do you know that story? Two men go fishing, and as they're fishing, one man notices that he keeps having to put his worms back in the can. And he looks at the other guy's can of worms, and they're all staying in. So he asks him, why are my worms trying to crawl out and yours are staying in the can? And he says, well, when one of my worms tries to crawl out, the others pull him back down. And that's what a family is like that's struggling to learn how to empower each other. They pull each other down. They don't want the other to succeed. They want to keep control, to keep status quo, everybody in their place. It's complete control. And none of them really succeed that way. The only worm that succeeds is the one that actually gets out of the can and gets away. And sadly, some families are like that. But let's look just a little bit more at empowering, what it means and how it actually can be done. We could say that empowering is the desire to serve and the knowledge that we will be served. It's that idea, if we go back to understanding and forgiveness, let's look at it this way. We really can't empower unless we understand, right? And we will have a hard time empowering if we're holding unforgiveness in our heart. So these things kind of all work together. But empowering is like my grandmother's words. That gives me the impetus and the desire to go forward, and the fact that I know that she believed in me and that she was there for me and would answer my questions and provide for my needs as I needed them. That empowering is that recognition of each other's strengths and potential, and then guiding as they go forward. I learned a lot from this grandmother, worked with her in 2 or 3 different stores, and watched her as she taught me business and just so many different things that empowered me for my life. It's also the ability to see somebody's strengths and grab hold of them and help them to learn and grow in those strengths and not be intimidated by it. And it's not just about doing these things for our kids. It's about doing them for our spouse as well, and then inside our church family and with our friends as well, to reach out and to see a person's strengths and get in and try to help them get there. And empowering is reciprocal, if we use that word. It takes place between 2 people because they mutually enhance the other. It's that iron sharpeneth iron idea that the Bible gives us. It's that give and take. And it happens inside marriages and family relationships and work relationships. It's a very effective tool in life. It's also the action of God in our life. In John 10:10, Jesus says, I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. And he empowers us to believe, to become the sons of God in John chapter 1 and verse 12. It's also found there personally in Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. He works mightily within us, and all power is his to give, isn't it? He didn't use power, though Jesus came to earth. You remember, he laid aside his power. He did not use his power as oppression. He actually redefined it. As you read the Sermon on the Mount, you see him bringing forth, this is what the Pharisees say, but I say unto you. He brings compassion and mercy into power, and he rejected the use of power to control people, especially when it came to women and children. Instead, he affirmed people, and he demonstrated the use of power to serve others, to lift up the fallen, to forgive the guilty, to strengthen the weak, and to enable, and there's another E word, to enable the unable. So empowering is love in action. It's the mark of a Christian, and one we need to emulate the most. The world will tell you, though, that power or control is the way forward, and that all power is in the hands of the person with the most resources. But the good news is that God is the guy with the resources, isn't he? And he gives it to us in unlimited amounts. If we even just look at the Galatians chapter 5 with the fruits of the Spirit, we see the full character of God there in unlimited supply for his children. And the Bible says, against such there is no law. We can be kind and thoughtful, and all these things are empowering. As the Spirit of God dwells within us, then he enables us to enable others. And with spiritual growth, the family can serve each other and give to each other in just absolutely unlimited ways, in extraordinary ways, and use each person using their own strength to build up the other. It's the essence of 1 Corinthians 8:1, where it says, knowledge puffeth up, but charity or love edifies, it builds up. And we can share without a fear of losing our power, because just like a candle, when you share the flame from one candle to the other, the first candle does not lose its strength, but yet the other one gains it. So done properly, parenting and children and parents will achieve a sense of personal power and self-esteem and wholeness, and the family becomes a unit of their own as each one lights the other's candle. Successful parenting has to do with children gaining this personal power, gaining this flame, and the parents, like we say, retaining it, just like that candle. Throughout the process, we let them grow up. We let them become adults. It doesn't mean that we become any less. So empowering is the ultimate goal. We want our children to have self-control. We want them to have self-direction, self-determination, to actually leave the nest, yes, and make their own home, to separate from us and to create a beautiful home in the image of Christ inside their own life. And they will only do that as we empower them. We give them the power to do so. We release them to that. So right now, you're at home. We're all at home. We might be homeschooling, and in that way, we are empowering. We might be working from home, and our children are seeing us in a different light. Our spouse also is seeing us in a different light, and as we work together to empower each other to get through our workday, to get our schooling done, we are empowering our family. We're putting strength into our family. And I got to thinking that as we move to these restrictions and releasing of these restrictions, we're going to have to need probably some empowering as well, some encouragement, some equipping, some edifying, some enabling to help each other gain the courage to get back into the world, because the world is going to be changed. It's not going to go back to the way it was. People are going to be fearful, and we want to teach our children not to be fearful. We want to face the world with courage. But don't wait for the restrictions to be lifted. Start now. Start building that strength in them now. Open that conversation. What's life going to look like in the future? How are we going to face some of these things? What do we anticipate that life will be like? And you rarely get a time like this to focus on your own individual family. So don't lose it. Don't lose the moment. Take that time. Open the conversations. Start building strength in your family. Jude chapter 20 and verse 21 says, "But ye, beloved, building up yourselves, and dare I say, building up your family in your most holy faith, praying in the Holy Ghost, and keep yourselves in the love of God." And the next time we meet, we're going to talk about that L word, love. I hope you've been encouraged today to stay strong, stay safe, and strengthen each other.